Hello, welcome. We are here today with the lovely Lori Krikorian. Am I pronouncing that right, Lori?
Yes, you
Yes.
are
Thank
perfect.
you. Okay, good. So, Laurie is here today as the second person in our Inspiring Money Stories series on the podcast. And, so far we've just had some really interesting conversations. So, I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be talking about today. Laurie is a fellow coach. She's a member of one of the coaching communities that I'm a member of. And when I saw her post about her story of, manifesting a significant lump sum of money and coming in the most unexpected way, I was like, wow, that just sounds so interesting. I think, if you're in a situation where there's maybe a big money goal that you've got that you think it's unreachable, that it's not possible, perhaps today something that Laurie will have to share about her story might inspire you around that. So, Laurie, do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction, like who you are, where you are from, what you do?
Yes, I would love that. So I am Lori Krikorian. I am a business coach, and I mostly help new coaches build their careers. I struggled in mine for years. It took me about 6 to 7 years to build my own business. And as soon as I found out, like as soon as I understood what it took to build it, um, everything shifted for me. And I think people witnessed me doing that. And I found the simplest ways to really build your business. And I have now built my entire coaching practice around people's nervous systems.
Mm.
So I have a life coaching program, a group life coaching program that starts at $25 a
Mm-hmm.
month, and people can come in and get coached once a week. And it's a low investment and low commitment. And I have the same for business on the business end. So business coaches can come in for $55 a month. And it's like that. I think in the coaching industry especially, we see often that there's like it is a big investment, and I do believe that it's very worth it. But I was playing this game where I was over investing, and I couldn't perform because I was in this like panic zone because it was all too much, all
Yeah.
way too outside of my comfort zone. So now I think that I'm solving for that problem where people can come in and start the process without um, activating their nervous system from the beginning.
Right. That's so interesting. And I think that's something that we see a lot in the world of like money mindset and manifestation as well. That what you mentioned there about that over investing and going into panic mode. And I think sometimes there's this belief that, it's almost like you have to invest at that level in order to see that return or something. And,
Yes.
or maybe, I have to be living like that coach who would invest at that level, therefore then I can manifest at that level. So, whether you're coming at it from the business point of view or the manifestation point of view or both, you see a lot of that stuff. And then when that big investment is made, you just shut down, right? Like with the nervous
Yes,
system going into like fight, flight, freeze, yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So, like, the investment makes people panic. And then, in addition to that, what is being taught at that level, it's like the person's skill level isn't there yet. And I'm speaking of myself because I often invested in things where it was beyond my skill level. So, it was like the investment was really hard. And in
Yeah.
addition to that, I couldn't figure out how to do the things because it was so outside of my comfort zone. And
Mhm.
so it's like, and then you get stuck in the spiral of like beating yourself up for not being good enough, but that's not
Yeah.
what's happening at all.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's such a journey business, isn't it? Like I always just think, I don't know that there's a greater personal transformation journey other than maybe parenting. But like,
Exactly.
it makes you face all of your stuff. If you've got stuff to like deal with, yeah, it all comes to the surface. Yeah.
1000%. I
Yeah.
think building a business, especially a coaching business, is like
Mm,
the deepest form of self-love, because
yeah.
that is the journey. Like, you have
Yeah.
to be so good with yourself and so kind to yourself and learn how to do that. Um, and yes, it's never ending,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't
Mm.
have it any other way.
Absolutely. And I guess that's why we're coaches. So yeah, definitely. So what was it when was this you had that amazing experience with manifesting that big chunk of money. So where did that fit into your journey? Was that before you went into coaching or
Yes, it was right before. So it was at the very beginning of my journey. I had I had started off this whole journey about 10 years ago, and I began in the multi-level marketing industry. So I had joined this company that was teaching how to do network marketing, but online. So online marketing. And it was quite new. I mean, 10 years ago, it was still fairly new. So
Mhm.
email marketing and all of those things. And I joined this company. I went all in. It was like $7,000 or something. And I didn't know what a domain was. I
Right.
didn't know what a hyperlink was. So, like, talk about outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's really out there. But that's also where my belief grew. It's where I saw people creating things that I never thought was possible. So it really helped. I think that I wouldn't have been where I am today if I hadn't had that experience.
Mhm.
So it was well worth it. And it also started off my personal development journey. I thought at the time that I was broken and I needed to be fixed. That is not the case. I was just human.
Mhm. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I think like a lot of people are going through that now where they think something's wrong with them. They can't figure this out. They can't, like we're talking about manifesting. It's like, why can other people do it? And I can't seem to get my stuff
Mhm.
together to do it. Um, but I'm losing my train of thought.
Yeah. So you're talking about like the MLM. We were talking about, your belief grew when you were working in the MLM kind of space. So that was pre-coaching. And
Yes.
was that when you got into manifestation then at that point?
Yes, because I started off with the personal development. I started to go to um like a lot of seminars, and I mean I was doing all the things. I was in therapy, I
Mhm.
had coaches, I had, and I was going to several different retreats. Right, I was talking about how people think that they're broken. They're not broken, they're just human.
Yeah.
Um and that's the journey that I was on. And I had gone to this one seminar, which was like the starting seminar. I went to New York City for it. And um, when I got back, a friend of mine, are we going to get into the story now?
Yeah, please do. I'm dying to hear it. Yeah.
So I had gone to this seminar. I came back, and a friend of mine reaches out to me, and she was like, there's this government website. So I live in Canada, I'm in Quebec, and there's this provincial website where you can go in and enter your information, like your name, and it'll tell you if the government is holding any money for you. So I couldn't really understand it, but she put in Krikor, which is a first name in Armenian,
Mhm.
and Krikorian is my last name. So when she put in Krikor, Lori Krikorian popped up with an address. And so she asked me if I've ever lived at that address. And I said, yes, I had lived there when I was a child. Like,
Mhm.
imagine I
Mhm.
was 8 years old.
Wow.
I won't
Yeah.
tell you how many years ago that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So I was 8 years old when I lived there. And so she had found this money. And I was like, oh, I was very the relationship that I had with money was very much like, I know that it's always there for me. And I wasn't very on top of it. It was like, oh, I
Mm.
know this money is there for me now. And I kind of left it like that. I didn't even look into it further. I didn't even, she was like, oh, you went to that seminar and you started manifesting already. And I'm like, yes, I was so excited. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm manifesting. I didn't even try to get the money or find out what it was or anything. I just took it for granted that it was there.
Yeah.
And then I think years went by, and I was like thinking about that money one day, and I was like, oh yeah, I have to find that thing. I have to find that website. I have to call my friend and find out, what website that was.
Oh, I think we've got a couple of technical issues. I don't know if it's on my end.
I'm back.
Ah, here you are. Yes. Yeah. So I heard up to, you had to remember about that website. So you'd left it a few years. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So I was thinking like, oh yeah, I have to reach out to my friend. I have to get that information. And another friend of mine reached out to me and said, hey, Lori, I handle estates for people who pass on. And the deceased's name was something Krikorian. And so when I entered it in this website, your name popped up. So it was that same website. I'm like, oh, perfect. I was looking for that website. So can you
that
send
was a
me the
completely
link?
unrelated friend, not involved in that conversation. Okay.
Not at all. Yeah. So manifesting everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
he gives me the information, and then I didn't know how to even prove that I lived there because it wasn't my house. I was a child. I didn't have a license or anything that I could prove. And he said, don't worry about it. We had gone to the same primary school together. So he said, just go to the school and get one of your old report cards with the address on it, and that's enough proof. So I said, okay. And I started to put in the work of gathering the information to retrieve this money. I still didn't know what it was. So in the meantime, I started the process. I sent in all the information, and then I had gone to see a medium who was also a coach. So I went to the medium, and I had set a goal to make $30,000 through my business in July.
And when was this? Was that like the next month? Was that in June or something? Or
so I set the goal in March or April.
okay.
Early on, probably in April, if it was April, because I had all of April to make a certain sum. I had all of May to make a certain sum, June, and then July would be my 30K month.
Right. So like 3 or 4 months you were planning on making this through your business. Yeah.
Exactly. So in June, I went to see, towards the end of June, no, earlier than that, in like April or May, I went to see the medium, and I told her, oh, by the way, I have this like goal that I want to make 30,000 in my business, but I haven't made the amount that I was supposed to make for April. I haven't made the amount that I was supposed to make for June, for May, I mean. So I don't know if I should just rethink this whole thing and replan it. And she's like, no, your angels are saying it's okay.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. And she said, listen, why don't you write out your goals, write it out on a calendar, bring it to me, let me see it, and I'll tell you how to word it, how to say it, how to fix it. So I did that. And I went to see her. It was like the end of June or the beginning of July. And I had written $30,000 in July through the company that I was working for.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, remove the company that you're working for. Let it come in any way that you want, like any way that it wants. You could win the lottery. It could be, somebody could give it to you. You don't know how you're going to get it. So just be open to that. And I think that is one of the keys of manifesting. Oh, and before all of this, I was also visualizing what it would be like, what it would feel like, what it would I was gonna wake up in the morning. I was gonna go
Mm-hmm.
outside. Like I was just visualizing it, like, living my day as I would, and then opening my laptop and seeing, oh my goodness, I have made $30,000
Yeah. Yeah.
this month. So I had really gotten in tune with what that would feel like, and started to celebrate that and started to feel what it would feel like to celebrate it and really be in the moment as if it had happened already.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to see her in June and she said, so don't specify where you want it to come from and make it 30K plus.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't give it a limit. So I went home that day and I was thinking about what she was saying. This was a Friday. And I was thinking about what she was saying, and I was like, but I don't want it to come in just anyway. Like, I don't want it to be an inheritance. I don't want someone to die because I want this money.
Yeah.
You know, all of these things
Really
kept
common.
coming to my mind. And like, energetically speaking, I think a lot of people feel that way. And we just put up those energetic
Yeah.
walls when we do,
Yes.
right? So the following Monday, all weekend, I didn't think about it at all. The following Monday, I was reading Think and Grow Rich in my bed, and I read something. I don't remember what it was that I read, but whatever it was, I remember how I felt because it was like a complete shift in mindset. Like everything in me kind of let go. Like I
Mm.
energetically let go and let it in, really,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, you know what, nobody's gonna die because I want money. Like, that's
Right.
rubbish. So I was like, oh, hold on a second. It was like I was suddenly open to receiving it anyway, and then I remembered that the lady that I had been in contact with through the government had emailed me back, and I never checked that email. So I went to open the email, and it was several account numbers with phone numbers. And so I started to call the phone numbers. And so up until this point, I didn't really know what that money was for. So when I started to call the companies, they were stocks. And so the man started to tell me, how many stocks I had in each investment and how much it was worth and how much the total was. And I was doing a quick calculation and it was like more than $30,000.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
started to freak out because I was laughing so hard. And I was like, don't tell me that there's been $35,000 waiting there, sitting there
Yeah.
waiting for me to find it. He didn't find it very amusing, but I was, I
Yeah.
was very amused by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what it was. It was $35,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
35,000 and it was always there. It was
it was
always there.
always
That's the
there.
amazing thing as well, isn't it? You
Yeah.
just know. Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
an investment that nobody knows who made it for me. It was someone in the family, either my dad or my grandparents or my
Right.
uncle, like someone did it.
Right.
And then they forgot about it. So the government was getting the dividend checks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, what an incredible gift. And one of the things that I love about your story is, the whole let it come any way it wants to come, getting out of that how and that control and like, it must be this way. And I think that's something that we get into a lot in this world is like, oh, I think if I go out and I do a social media post and I do this, and then I'll get this in my business and then this will come. And it's like we're dictating how everything wants to go. But what if the money wants to come in some other random way, which does not have to involve the death of anyone that we love? It's like it can come in so many different ways. We just have no idea.
Exactly.
Like, could you have ever even have dreamt that someone had made an investment in your name that was, carrying all these dividends that you just didn't even know about anymore? I mean, yeah,
No.
incredible.
because there were other investments that I had that I was given earlier. So I thought that was it. And then this, and you know, like $35,000 sounds like a lot, but they were purchased at very low costs. So it was mostly gains.
Mm.
So I have the figures somewhere, but they were purchased like for hundreds of dollars, you know, maybe
Right.
1,000 at max, you know,
Yeah.
but it
Yep.
grew over time. And I let it sit there for a while longer. It eventually grew to like $56,000.
Amazing.
Um, and then I've used half of it, and the other half is still growing.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah. So you've still got it in there? Yeah.
Yes,
I love that. I love that. And you know what you kind of refer to. Mike Dawley is one of my favorite teachers in this area. You know, I love a lot of his work and his books, and he talks about the cursed hows. And I think that's kind of what you were talking about there. It's like, you know, it must come through this company. It must be like this. And I think I remember something in your story as well that you were talking about with this multi-level marketing company. Part of your manifestation was you were visualizing what it would look like to go into the back office area, to log in
yes,
and see that this is what you had got that month through the business. You know,
yes.
that
That
how
was the visualization. Exactly. It was
yeah,
like I was visualizing every aspect of it, including the feelings and the emotions. And
yeah,
I think that is the key when you can tap into what it would feel like.
absolutely.
And then
Yeah.
if we can allow ourselves to feel that before we even get it, like from everyday things, I
Mm,
think that's so important. I think it's such an important piece of the puzzle.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone's watching this and they're thinking like, you know, I struggle with that, like it's hard to kind of drop into a feeling and you know, activate that, especially if they've got challenging financial stuff that's literally right in front of them. What would you say to them that might help them to get into that feeling space?
Mm. Yeah, I do. I think it is important to say that I do have a lot of privilege. So that, you know, have I felt financial struggles in my life? Absolutely. Um, but, you know, the panic that I was feeling at the time was just self-induced
Hmm.
panic. Um, so I do understand that in times of stress, it's very hard to focus on anything other than the stress.
Yeah.
And I think it's often like when we're talking about the nervous system, when you're in that, like when your survival is at risk, you know, it's understandable that you're in that panic zone.
Mm,
So the best advice that I can give for that is to learn how to calm your nervous system down. And you can do a Google search and learn different techniques. One of my favorite techniques is a simple breathing exercise. And I think there's different forms of this, but it's like taking a breath in for 4 counts, holding it. So you draw a box, like you draw a square, right? So
mm,
you take a breath in, and then you hold it for 4, and then you breathe out for 4, and then you hold it for 4, and you continue doing this until your nervous system calms down. And I
mm.
think that's just the most important work that people can do when their nervous systems are very activated, because most of us are going through life dealing with small traumas,
Yeah.
and it's just leading everything in your life. So
Mm,
learning how to calm down is the first step. And then from there, if you can start to visualize it, I think, you know, when I was younger, my parents got divorced, and my coping mechanism was dissociation.
mm,
So I would daydream all day long. It was
mhm,
like I escaped the reality that was my new reality and
mm,
started to create the reality that I would have preferred.
mm,
And I was living there for years. Like I wasn't paying attention in school and I was just daydreaming all day. So I think part of that, it's like from your worst experiences of life, sometimes you get gifts. And I think that was my gift, my ability to dream. So start getting in tuned with what you want and start asking yourself, what would it feel like? And if it's too hard to visualize it at first, you can write it out and journal it and coach yourself through it. So if you're like, well, I don't know what it would feel like, then be like the client and then put your coach hat on and ask yourself questions like, well, would you feel happy? Would you feel, how would you feel if you had this money? And then start to dig into what that would be, what that would look like, get into all the little details, start to picture yourself in that situation, and really get a sense of what's around you and then how you feel in your body. And even if you can't name it, if you can feel it, that's amazing.
Totally. Yeah, I love that, because really at the end of the day, what we're talking about is vibration. So, whatever label we put on it, it doesn't matter so much, even if you just activate that vibration enough so that maybe the contrast is something that you can say, okay, I don't want this. So if I don't want that, imagine what it would be like to not have that. Oh, I guess it would feel maybe like this. But yeah, like you say, even if you don't have a label for that, even just activating that feeling inside you, that can be really, really powerful for sure. Yeah. And I love what you're talking about as well with coaching yourself through that as well. And then getting to a place where even if you could just put a few words down around what it would be like to be in that space, I mean, you're essentially starting to script, and that's a really powerful manifesting tool. Actually, I found I was decluttering just this morning. I was decluttering an old tray of papers actually that I hadn't got around to yet. And there was this little pile of, little personal development type things that I've done over the years. And one of them was my future self letter that I wrote in 2017, I think. I wrote it to myself in 2018. And I tell you what, everything on that letter has come true. It's amazing. So when we do start to script, it just activates our brain and takes us in that direction. Yeah.
It does, because it's so important to think about like, okay, what is it about that thing that's going to make you happy? What is it about that thing that's going to make you feel a certain way? What is that feeling? And how can I tap into that right now?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. One other thing I wanted to reflect on with your story as well is how you were in this MLM space for a certain amount of time. So it sounds like you've transitioned into coaching. Maybe there are a couple of other stops along your journey, but you had an idea at some point that this was the thing that was going to give you that money. It's like, I do this, and then this money pops into my bank account on the other side. It's like, it's such a kind of like linear black and white situation that we're thinking through at that time, isn't it? Like, I do X and then Y happens. And it doesn't always work that way. But it sounds like what you've done over time is you've taken little steps and little steps and little steps and evolved into a way that actually that goal was met. And now you're also doing the coaching, and you've come through and you found a way to make that an abundant business as well. But, you couldn't have thought at that point in time that the money would come to you from investments that were made by someone else, and that eventually you'd be a coach. I mean, what are your thoughts on that whole journey that you've taken as to where you were at then and where you're at now?
That's a really good question. When I started off back then, I didn't even know coaching was a thing. I think I may have shared with you that I got into coaching. I don't know if I shared this with you, but I got into coaching not knowing what it was.
Okay.
I thought it was like, you're going to go to coaching school and they're going to teach you how to be right about everything. And you're going to teach people. And then people are going to come for you for answers, and you're going to have them all for them. I thought that's what it was.
Right. Yeah.
But I had started to manifest what I wanted back then. I started to get very clear. I remember even before joining the MLM company, I remember, okay, so I was a stay-at-home mom. It was what I always wanted to be. Like, I didn't have these big dreams, although I did, but I really, like when I was younger, and this is going to sound awful, but it's my truth. When I was younger, I couldn't understand feminism. I was like, why
Mhm.
do women want to work? Like, you get to stay
Mm.
home, raise the babies, and clean the
Mhm.
house and not have any responsibility other than that,
Mhm.
which is, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. But
Yeah, it is.
why would you want to work? And I think also my idea of work was like things that I didn't enjoy doing. So I really couldn't understand it. Um, and then I was in a
Mhm.
situation where I had everything that I wanted. I was staying at home with my child, and I had all of this love to give. And I had everything that I wanted, everything that I wanted in life, I had. Like, I had a vision board. Every single thing on that vision board came true. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Even things that I didn't think I wanted were on the vision board. And I was like, it's a symbol of what I want, but I ended up getting exactly what was on the vision board. And that's exactly what I wanted at the time. So it was really interesting. But I had everything that I wanted on the outside. On the inside, I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was dying a spiritual death. I was so unfulfilled. I had never felt that way before in my life. And something had to give. I didn't know what it was. It was like when I got married, I went through a very deep depression. And then when I had my child and I was going through this experience, it was like an emotional breakdown that I had.
Mm. Mm.
And honestly, the way that I started to get out of it was started making lists, like a gratitude list daily, and just being grateful for the things that I had in my life. It completely changed my energy, my
Mm.
attitude. And then I started to think about what I wanted to do, and I was trying to find my purpose. And I was trying to find like what I was created and what I was put on this earth to do. What a huge task to figure out.
Yeah. A lot of pressure.
Um,
Yeah.
but I I didn't know it was coaching,
Mhm.
but that's exactly what it was. And I was just going through the list of things that I enjoyed doing, but I couldn't imagine myself doing it all day long. So I slowly started to, ask myself questions and fill in details of how I wanted each aspect of my life to be. And I've actually, through that process, created a self discovery workbook. I'll show it to you.
Mm.
This is it.
Lovely. Yeah.
And it's like every aspect of your life. What do you want it to look like? And I ask questions, and there's like a visualization exercise, and, you know, a lot of exercises and questions that you can fill out and
Nice.
really manifest like the relationship of your dreams and the career
Mm.
of your dreams and any aspect. Just taking that time to get clear on what it is that you want, what
Mm.
it is that you need, what it is that you desire. That's where manifestation starts.
Mm. Mm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's so true, because when we don't even have that clear vision. That's what I talk about a lot as well, is having that profound vision, because often we're just like, oh, I just want more money and I want more joy and I want more freedom and I want more time. And it's like, here, you can have a minute more in your afternoon by not doing this. And here's 10 cents on the road. And, and it's like, there's more money. Yeah. And it's like, the universe is like, tick, I did your goal for you. But yeah, we really need to get really clear about this. So yeah, just experimenting and playing with what feels good. And I love how you talk about, just pivoting over as well to, we can we can be in that headspace all we want, asking those questions about why is my life like this? It's not fair. I don't want it to be this way. And when we're dwelling like that, it creates more and more of that, doesn't it? So if we get to pivot and ask those powerful questions like, well, what do I want? If it wasn't this, what could it look like? Yeah. So your workbook sounds really helpful to work through all of that. If someone's in a space where their life in many areas is not quite looking right, like the way they want it, then, that sounds like a really good process.
Yeah, I think that this type of work can be done no matter where you are in your process.
Yeah.
I think like even us, where I think that you and I are fairly advanced in this work, taking that time to stop and really just giving yourself that space once a year to ask yourself those questions will help you to stop letting life happen to you and really turn things around so that you're living the life that you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, designing your life, really. Intentional life design is what it's all about, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that. So if anyone's curious about your work, if they're curious about this workbook as well that you've got and this whole process that you're doing, whereabouts can they find more information about you?
Okay, so the best place to find me is on Instagram. That's where I spent most of my time. Instagram and Facebook. I will share those links
Great.
with you. And for the Ultimate Self-Discovery Workbook, I will also share the link with you, and people can download that for free, print it out, and start doing the work. And getting I love giving oh my gosh, I just lost the word.
The ultimate self-discovery workbook.
Analogy.
Yeah.
This analogy.
Yeah,
I love giving
yeah.
this analogy, right?
Yeah.
It's like when people want to find someone, right? To find that great love of their life. It's so useful and it's in the workbook, okay? All the questions to create that is in the workbook, but it's really useful to know what you're looking for when you go out on a date with someone and you're clear on what you want and what you don't want. When it's appearing in front of you, you know if it's a yes or a no.
That is so true. That is like one of the biggest light bulb moments I had when I was dating and before I met my fiance. And I had to get a relationship coach because I had so much mind drama around men and dating. And that was one of the biggest things that she got me to do, was like figure out, it's almost like a filtering process. It's, not in a harsh way, but just like, oh, will that work? Won't that work? And it doesn't matter then what your feelings are and all that chemistry. And it might be like, oh my God, he's so nice. And, he's really good looking, and you get all that giddy feeling. But actually, if it doesn't tick some of these really important boxes, in your heart it's a no. That is really, really powerful stuff.
Yes,
definitely.
Exactly. So
Fantastic.
Half of it is knowing exactly what you want, and then making yourself available for it. So it's like, know that if we're talking about relationships, know that the person that's meant for you, that you're looking for, is also looking for you.
Yeah.
So when you put yourself out there halfway in, that you give the space for that person to come and meet you halfway as well.
So true. That's a beautiful way to put it, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like we're constantly putting ourselves out there into these situations that can be stressful, and sometimes they're quite, they bash our self-esteem a little bit sometimes as well, so if we can look at it that way and get into a new headspace, that's everything when it comes to dating, I think. Yeah, fantastic. Yes. That workbook sounds really, really amazing. So we'll share all of those links. I'll get those links and I'll put it under this video on the live stream in Facebook, and we'll also get that out on the podcast as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Lori. It's been fantastic hearing your story, seeing that money come from such an unexpected source when you had, such a clear idea in your mind where it must come from. And just hopefully people will, be open to new ideas now about how this money can come into their life and how it wants to come in. Yeah. All right.
I love that you're doing this, Carrie, and I loved talking to you, and I look forward to listening to everyone else's story, because I think that we're going to be able to grab little tidbits from everyone's story and really up level our manifestation.
Totally. That's exactly my my intention with this whole series. Yeah.
So
Wonderful. Well,
good.
thank
I
you so
love
much for
it.
your time. I'll speak to
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.